Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you and welcome everyone tonight. Roll call, Mr. Lundberg?
Oh.
Yes.
Odie?
Yep.
Hagelin is absent. Klatt?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
All right, with that, if there aren't any changes to the agenda, I would approve that as presented tonight, or I would entertain a motion to approve that as presented tonight.
So moved.
Second. There's been a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Conflict of interest disclosure waiver requests. I don't believe there are any of those tonight. Okay. That takes us to approval of the minutes from the regular meetings on October 10th and October 24th. If there are no questions or concerns, I would entertain a motion to approve those as presented tonight.
I move to approve the October meeting minutes.
Second.
There's been a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. There is no community input tonight, so that takes us to the financial items, bills and claims. Mr. Lundberg.
Okay, I did have one notation on my notes for a bill that we're paying this month, $649,000 to East Dakota Educational Co-op, and I know it's not the right name, it's the name in the system. We'll get that changed maybe 4 or 5 years down the road. I'm sure they'll still cash it though for $650,000. I just really wanted to run through the breakdown of what that's a one-time payment. That's all of our services to the co-op for the year, the 2016-17 school year. $364,000 is OT, PT services, the total of those services. We hire an autism specialist for $79,000 through the co-op. We have a program called Transition Advantage, which is kids that have graduated from high school and between graduation to high school and 21, the program that they run for those kids. And then we have another program, our Career Academy, a program, which is $128,000. So that's what comprises the $650,000 there. Did anybody else have any questions on any of the other bills? That was the only one I had noted. There was a total of $1.2 million. Total bills, $6,500 advance payment breakdown, $41,000 of pay vouchers, and $98,000 of food service bills.
Thank you. If there are no further questions for Mr. Lundberg, I would entertain a motion to approve the bills and claims as presented this evening.
So moved on bills and claims.
Second.
There's been a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Financial report, Mr. Lundberg.
Okay, the cash report for the month of October, $4.2 million coming into the month, and we had receipts of $1.8 million and disbursements of $3,100,000. Left end of the month, end of October balance of $2,941,000, of which $2,441,000 was in the general fund, $407,000 in the pension fund, $62,000 in the bond redemption fund, and $31,000 in the enterprise fund. You can see on that cash report in the middle section there's some temporary interfund transfers back and forth between funds. Those are to cash flow those funds until the tax draw comes in November and December. They'll get straightened back out. The $1,800,000 is itemized on the next 2 pages. Included in those receipts were payment from the South Dakota School for the Deaf for the bimodal program that we run at the school district of $156,000. I was informed that program will go away next year. This will be the last year that we run the bimodal program. The payroll and benefits summary follows that of $1,800,000 and the breakdown of where that payroll went. And lastly, of the financial statements, the first ones are the revenue statements. We're a third of the way through the fiscal year. The revenue statements are really not worth much until we get through November and December when we have the tax draw. The percentages get really skewed, but you can compare them last year and see that they're relatively close to the same at the same time last year. The expenditure reports follow that. General fund is showing 33.4% versus 33.9% last year at the same time. And last year, to take that out, we were at 99% of our budget, so I I'd like another month or two for sure to predict that, but I would suspect in the 99-point-something% for the 16-17 school year. I don't have any concerns of any of the line items. Capital outlay fund shows 71% of our budget expended. Special ed is lower than last year, 27% versus 38%, because we had already paid the East Dakota Co-op bill, Teach Well bill. Early retirement is higher because half of the early retirement or pension fund last year was for South Dakota retirement, the 1% that we did at the end of the year. This year, all we use for that pension fund is the severance package, the buyout package, so we do that all in July, so that's fully expended. And bond redemption is very equivalent to last year. Food service fund shows a deficit of $48,000 versus $23,000 at the same time last year. And the trust and agency statement shows $167,000 of amounts held for others. Any questions on any of the particulars?
Paul, I had a question on the payroll and benefits. Again, I know it's for the month of October. I gotta assume it's just again for the month of October. It's not a quarterly or just looking at like health insurance, dental insurance. That's per month is what that typically runs.
Correct. That is for the month of October only.
Okay. Is that remind me, I know you mentioned, is that for the employee, an employee and spouse or family, or?
That would be the total premium, of which the school district portion of that premium we pay 100% of single and 70% of family, so it would be, whatever that would come out to be. Probably about 75% of that would be district expense, and the other 25% is coming from the employees through deductions.
Okay, thank you.
And the payroll, a normal, typical payroll, 4-week payroll this year in the 16-17 school year would be about $1,750,000. This was a 5-week period here, and so when I go through this payroll each and every month, I'll try to notate that if there's a variance from that $1,750,000, it's a 5-week payroll period versus a 4-week or something like that, or some special payment that's in there that I'll note it. A year ago when we were going through all the Gear Up things, little things like that, when you guys serve on other boards, those are things you look for what a normal, I say that in quotes, normal payroll would be, but any variance from that should be questioned by you as a board member when you sit on all these other boards. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any more questions for Mr. Lundberg? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the financial report as presented tonight.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you again, Mr. Lundberg. That takes us to our general business items. First, we have administration reports. Superintendent Larson, anything tonight?
Okay, real quick, I just want to provide an update on a couple items. Middle school entrance, common STEM lab project that was presented with the Buildings and Grounds Committee last time, capital improvements. We met administrative team, met with ARC Inc. on November 10th to look at some preliminary options. We'll walk through pros, cons, etc. On the 1st of December, there will be a follow-up meeting to review those proposed drawings. Following that, there will be bi-weekly meetings to maintain communications. Looking at early February for finalized drawing, bid specs being completed, and bringing those to you for approval, and then ultimately advertisement. Early March, bids being due, and then board approval at one of the mid-March meeting, either the 1st or the 2nd. We're shooting for the 1st, with April start being exterior work. We certainly would not do anything with the main entrance and make certain that is a safe environment. Just a quick tentative timeline on that project. Also just wanted to let you know that looking to the future, Activities Director Marceau, Operations Manager Hinchell, and myself did take a field turf tour of a variety of fields in our area. That turf project is tentatively slated for June 2018. Just a good idea to get an idea of what what the goods and the bads and what some experiences are in the area. I have very little experience with field turf, so I appreciate Director Marceau lining that up and us starting that process of finding the pros and the cons. And then I also just want to give you a quick update on the school calendar for next year. That is in progress. I've worked with the Teacher Liaison Committee, the administrative team. At the December board meeting, I will provide a calendar presentation to you outlining start date, when conferences are. There's a few tweaks or a few things that we're changing, and then ultimately give you the opportunity for question and answer. And then we'll bring that back in January for potential action if there are no other major changes. 5-year planning documents are due from our administration prior to leaving for the Christmas break. And then just wanted to provide a quick update on upcoming Board of Education meetings as we've moved to presentations, the second meeting of the month. So there will be an entrance plan report this month for our second meeting. In December, we only had one meeting. In February, our elementary Walk to Read program will be highlighting what that program is and how it works and how it functions in our system and why it's so effective. Then in March, we'll ultimately provide a Smarter Balanced Assessment presentation, a little demonstration on what type of questions our kids see, and give you an update on some of that assessment stuff. And then ultimately, in April, our Middle School Student Congress can provide a year in review, some of the projects and things they've worked on, so that you guys can stay tuned in with what's going on there. So I'd certainly entertain any questions you may have, but that is all I have to share.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Larson. Anything else tonight, Mr. Lundberg? Okay. That takes us to the high school. Dr. Talcott?
Nothing today.
Mr. Schleckelway? Mr. Thorson, middle school? Intermediate school, Mr. Skipstead? Okay. Special services, Mr. Okay, striking out. Elementary buildings, Ms. Foster? Mrs. Hayden? Mr. Horst? Mrs. Palmer? Ms. Stiro, do you have any? Oh, God. Okay. Operations manager, Mr. Henschel?
No, thank you.
And Mr. Marceau, anything?
We had a pretty good fall.
Yes, we did. Very nice. I've never been at a national band competition streaming a South Dakota Public Television game and trying to be quiet while I'm seeing touchdowns happening at the moment. So, thank you very much. No board policy tonight, so that takes us to general business, items 1 through 4. I would entertain a motion to approve those as presented tonight.
So move.
Second.
There's been a first and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Personnel items, there are 7 there for our consent approval. I would entertain a motion to approve those as presented.
Move to approve personnel items 1 through 7.
Second.
There's been a first and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Under communication with the central office, it does look like there are some building permit applications for your review. With that, that takes us to board reports. Does anyone have a formal report tonight?
I would like to discuss transportation. We met November 9th, and it was a very good meeting. It brought us up to what's going on in the district and what improvements might be occurring. One of the most important things that I noticed in this meeting was that the improvement in communications of the kids that are on the bus and making sure if a kid is out of line that the right channels are being told instead of all of a sudden the parents find their kid not being able to get on the bus. So there's a new way of communication throughout the district, so these kids can find it more easy to, so if they're in trouble, we try to work things out before it comes to a point where they're expelled from the bus. Another thing was we are looking at new administrative practices. There's going to be a mandatory parent meeting during a 5-day suspension ride. Privileges must be conducted prior to returning to the bus. And the basic is, like I said, Its purpose to ensure clear communications and expectations, also developing a plan to make sure that the kid is successful in school and on the bus. We also reviewed current policies, and there's a few of those we're going to be tweaking and maybe adding a few. Then Mr. Henschel also has a transportation liaison committee in which the drivers come and sit down with him and discuss issues, and it's becoming a very good and popular segment where they can just kick out what they want to say and not feel anything will be happening. And then finally, there was a discussion on potential needs and purchases for the next coming year. Typical, it's what you're seeing every year, possibly of 2 buses and maybe I won't say a Suburban or van or car, something like that. So that was just a brief discussion of what we did on our transportation meeting. So any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Odie. Anyone else?
Sure. I'll report on city affairs and legislation. The 2016 Delegate Assembly for the ASBSD, which is Associated School Boards of South Dakota, is meeting this Friday, and as the delegate for Brandon Valley School District, I'll be attending that conference. It meets Friday afternoon. Late today, I discussed briefly with Dr. Larson the standing positions and the legislative resolutions, which in years past you may remember that I've included those in the board packet, but to save lots of time, we did not do that this year. So if you check your school email, you'll have one from Dr. Larson soon, because I asked that he just forward these on to you. It's not urgent that you look them over. I'll tell you that the standing positions, for the most part, changes to standing positions this year are simply verbiage, just cleaning up some verbiage, and the standing positions of ASBSD are not drastically changing. Some of the legislative resolutions, again, are having some verbiage changes. There is some deletions and some additions because of new adoptions in South Dakota codified law per our last legislative session. We did visit briefly on the phone today about being in support, as ASBSD is in support of using a 2-year average for student enrollment numbers. And I don't have anything to say against that. If they ask for testimony in support, I, of course, would do that on your behalf. But there really isn't anything. If you want to take the time and read through lots and lots and lots of pages, anything in red indicates new. If it's underlined, it's brand new words. If it's stricken through, it's being deleted. But if you have specific questions after you read through those, feel free to get a hold of me. I doubt that you will. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Glatt. Safety Committee is Wednesday at 7, and those 2 will be there. Okay. All right. You 2 will. Thank you, Mr. Schrader and Mr. Odie, for doing that. Travel reports, there's 5 of those there for your review. And under other, I would just like to say thank you to all our classified staff and teachers. It sounds like you guys have a special week coming up, November 14th to the 18th. So hopefully you can celebrate and have a nice American Education Week. So thank you for all you do for our students all the time, all day long, all night long, every day. So thank you very much. With that, I think that takes us to the end of our agenda. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
There's a first and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes.